People have stopped by the stream and they've asked me how I have a loot filter. I made my own, and I actually wanted to show you guys how you can make your own too, just to give you an idea of what my loot filter looks like. My crossbow looks like this, some currency looks like that, other currency looks like that, uniques look like that. Press escape and go to options, and under your game tab, obviously this is where you choose your item filter. It'll be set to none. Just click on the folder of where the filters would go. So click to open your filter file folder. Let me kill this guy so he doesn't bother me. So let's click on that, and notice it takes me to this folder in my documents usually. So right now I have 3 filter files. The way you want to create one, since you're not going to have one, is just right here in the body. Just right click, new, go to text document, and then you can name it anything you want. So you could just put general, or you could put POE2, or anything. And the .txt, you need to remove that. If you don't have the show file extension names, just click view right here, show, make sure you have file name extensions checked, and then you can change txt, you can change it to .filter. If you press enter, are you sure you want to change it? Yes. Then you can right click and you can open with Notepad. Make sure you could also set that as your default so that it always opens with Notepad. But that's how you make a filter file. Then when you open it, I'm gonna open the general one. It's gonna open into a Notepad text file just like any other text file. But because you added the dot filter, POE2 will read it as a filter file. Okay. So there's a few keywords. These are not all of them, but these are some of the basic ones that you might want to look at. So the basics are show, hide, set text color, set background color, set border color, set font size, play alert sound, play effect, item level, sockets. There's more than this. You can get really convoluted and stuff like this. I'm sure you can find it on the wiki. If you just search the POE1 item filter wiki, you can see all the keywords and things like that that you can manipulate. I mean, I'm already missing some obvious ones here like class and base type, but don't worry about what they are now. I'm going to show you what they mean. I'm going to show you how to make a very basic loot filter while you wait for maybe Neversink, Filter Blade to make their general filter. If you find someone else has their own filter, you can just use theirs. But if you want to make your own and customize it, and you don't mind having a very basic one, or at least learning to start getting complex, if you don't mind that, then this video is for you. So let's start here. This is an example of what I did. Right here I have the keyword show. Whenever you put the keyword show, it means you specifically want to show a particular type of item, and then you could set parameters, right? We press enter to go to a new line, press tab to go over, set specific parameters of what exactly you want to show and how you want to show it. So in this case, I have a base type, exalted orb. What does base type mean? Base type is basically the specific type of item. So we have all these different currency types, right? Orb of transmutation, orb of augmentation, we have a regal orb, we have exalts, we have chaos, we have divine, we have all these kinds of different currencies. But they're all different base types. Each of these are a different base type of currency, but they're all different currencies. And what would that mean? That they're currencies, that means that's a class. And I'll go into classes later. But let's talk about base type first. So we took a specific base type, one orb, called the exalted orb. Okay, so we have the exalted orb here. Now let's look at our filter file again. So we're saying we want to show the base type of exalted orb. So we're telling the filter file that we want to see exalted orbs. Now, how do we want to see them? That's what we determine on the subsequent lines. So how do we want to see them? We want to set the background color to 15:205:21. What does this mean? This means RGB. So if you know about RGB numeric values, that's what these things follow. So that's what the kind of thing you want to go for. So if you're not familiar with that, you just go onto Google Chrome and you could just search up, this is what I searched up, RGB numbers. I picked the first one. Here's your RGB color picker. and then you can just choose a color. So let's say you want exalted orbs to look green. I like green for currency. It makes sense to me. Let's say I want a green and I want specifically this green right here. So what number am I looking for? RGB 25 206 67. Okay, that's what I'm looking for. 25 206 67. So if I open my filter file, I just want to put that right after. So let's do 25 206 and 67. So I set the background color, and I'm going to put this pound symbol in front of these, and what that does, it ignores those lines. Anything after a pound symbol will ignore those lines. So we're going to ignore those for now. Just imagine those don't exist, and we're only looking at this right now. Show base type exalted orb, and we're setting the background color. So let's see what that looks like in game. So what we're going to do is going to click File, Save, and then let's go back to game. And now from the item filter, let's choose the filter we're working on. General. Yours might be named differently. I have multiple ones, so just ignore those. Let's look at general. And make sure you click the reload button. And notice in the text right here, it says item filter loaded successfully. When it says that, that's how you know you did it right. It's very important to make sure it does that right. Otherwise, sometimes if you have any errors or any issues, it'll tell you here, did not recognize this word or something. It'll give you some kind of error, almost like you're coding. So let's save, and now if we drop the exalted orb, let's take a look what it looks like. Okay, it looks like this. And let's compare that to other currency, which looks like this. This is the normal default filter that you're looking at. This is what it looks like now. I made it green. But obviously this is really bad, right? I like the green background, but what if I want to make it so the text is more readable? Because right now it's not super readable. Let's pick something bold like black. Black is a very easy color to set for that. Okay, so let's go back to the loop filter, and that's where set text color will come in. So let's take that out, bring this back, ignore those for now. We're going to take off the pound symbol. So we're going to use the keyword set text color, and if you don't know, refer to that RGB website that I just showed you on Google. Black is 000 on RGB. So all zeros, no red, no green, no black. No blue. That's how you get black. Okay. So set text color is 000. So now if I add that, and if I file save, and I click here to reload, notice now it's much more readable. Okay, it is readable. It looks nice. Now it's easy for me to identify whenever I do come across exalted orbs. But what if I want it to be larger and easier to click? So when I'm blasting through maps and I see more loot, it's easier for me to click, easier for me to notice. Okay, so how do we do that next? So the next step would be set font size. So let's erase that here, bring that up over, tab over, erase that, ignore the other ones for now. Now we're looking at show base type exalted orb. We're setting the background color as this RGB value, which is green, setting the text color as black, and setting the font size. The font size ranges, I believe, between 1 and 45, and I think the default is 30. Don't quote me on that, I could be wrong, but just know 45 is the largest and 1 is the smallest. So if you want something larger, you could experiment with 40, 45, something somewhere around there. 45 being the max. Let's try that. So file save, reload, and look at that, exalted orb is larger. Now you might be asking me, okay, well that's nice, it's green, so it tells me it's currency, it's black so I could read it easily, it's larger so it's easier to click, but what if I'm blasting through a map and I'm trying to go fast, and what if I miss it? What if I want to hear something, right? I want to hear something to know that this item dropped so I don't miss it. Okay, so now we want to add a sound. So if we come back here, we have a new keyword called play alert sound. And just quick note on these keywords, they have to be capitalized and set exactly how they are. So notice I have base with a capital B, and then I have type with a capital T. It has to be set this exact way. So make sure you're doing it this way. I'll see if I can find the wiki that has all the keywords for the PoE 1 item filters, but they essentially work exactly the same from PoE 1 to PoE 2. The only difference is obviously in PoE 1 you would set filters for like, oh, I'm looking for items with 6 sockets. Well, we don't have items with 6 sockets in PoE 2 anymore, so certain rules won't apply. But Anyways, play alert sound is our new thing. We're going to take that off. And what are the two values here mean? So the first value is the actual type of sound you want. And I don't know what it goes up to, but it's between 1 and I think 15. It might go higher than 15, I don't know. But there's different sounds. There's like 15 different sounds, maybe 20 different sounds. You can experiment with what you like. And the second number is a volume. So the volume goes from 1 to 300. So 1 being the quietest, 300 being the loudest. I don't recommend 300. It might be too loud for you. 100 is a good spot. Experiment with that. If you want to increase it, maybe go to 150 or maybe try 200. Play around with the volume and then play around with the sounds you like. So if we start on sound number 1, it's file save. And now if I reload, notice it makes that sound. So that means whenever an exalted orb drops, it makes that sound. You hear that? Okay. So I'm not a fan of that sound. Let's try number 2. File save. You hear that sound? If you are familiar with filter blades, never syncs loot filters, that's a very common sound. So if I take this and drop that, look at the sound it's making. Right? So there you go. You could play around with that. Personally, a favorite of mine is 12. I like 12 personally. That's my favorite one. That's my favorite sound for whenever I drop more high value currency, okay? So there we go. Let's pick these back up. Okay, now let's look at a couple more things. So now, what if I want to make certain items look very special? So like, what else can I do? Or what other tips do I have? Well, there's one more keyword that I want to give you for currency that I like to add personally, especially high value currency like exalts, divines, maybe chaos, although chaos isn't as good in PoE 2. Chaos is okay. Exalts definitely are high priority, and divines are still pretty damn good. But you have a new thing called play effect, and play effect, all that does, it adds a beam to your items. And this doesn't use RGB, it actually uses the name of the color. So you could just put red here, you could put blue, there might be purple. I'm not sure exactly what colors are there, but feel free to experiment and play around with it. I just choose green. So now if I hit file and save, and I drop, or sorry, I have to reload first. Item filter loaded successfully, no errors. Now we drop our exalted orb and check that out. We have a sound, we have the green border, larger font size, black text, green beam flowing through it, and there you go. So these are the very basics. Looks good, and if I drop any other currency next to it, look at that. It has the defaults. Okay, now what if I want to add other kinds of currency? I want other currencies to have the same rules as that exalted orb. So let's look at some other currencies, for example. So like I said, maybe you prefer seeing when regal orbs drop. Just add it right after that in quotes. Make sure you put it in quotes. Anything that has two words in it, you want to put it in quotes. Okay, so exalted orb, regal orb. Let's put chaos orb, maybe. Let's put divine orb, maybe, right? You could put any orbs you want, and then you can adjust it this way. So now, if I reload here, my regal orb looks like that, my exalted orb looks like that, my chaos looks like that, my divine looks like that. Okay? So it follows all the same rules just because I added it on that same line. Okay, what if I want divines to look a particular way and change, and I want exalts to look a particular, what if I want to change them? Okay, so let's look at that. So let's pick these back up. So now if I open back the filter page, let's say I want only exalts and regal orbs to look this way. Maybe you're like, oh, because exalts and regals are currency for yellow, making yellow items, maybe I want to set the background color to yellow. Maybe I want to make the play effect yellow. I don't know what the RGB for yellow is, but I'm assuming it's some red, a little bit of green, hardly any blue, something like that. I don't know. Figure it out, but find out the RGB color. Maybe you want to set it as yellow. Let's actually set the example just to make it clear. So if we take yellow here, Yeah, 255, 255, hardly any blue. Okay, so let's just go with that. So put 255, 255. Let's just put 10. Okay. If I say file save, now what is it looking like? Refresh. It looks like that. So let's say I want exalted orbs to look yellow, regal orbs look yellow. Why? That's easy to tell me that when these things drop, they're currencies that mess with specifically rare items. Well, what about these orbs of transmutation that mess with blue items, that make normal items turn into blue items? Maybe I want to make those blue. How would I do that? How do I set additional rules? It's the same thing. You can literally just copy this, paste it down below, switch the base type from exalted orb. Let's just put orb of transmutation, and then we can do the same thing, orb of augmentation. Set the background color. Let's set this to maybe 0, 0, and 100 to get some kind of blue. The text color, maybe we want it to be white instead of black, because seeing a dark blue with black in it might be hard to read. So let's make this 255, 255, 255. I actually don't even know how this is going to look. Maybe I don't want to put a play alert sound, so I can just erase this line. Or if I do want a different sound, I can mess around and change it. Or let's just take it off. We don't want a sound when those drop because they're not that important. We'll give it a play effect, and maybe we'll decrease the font size to 40. Play around with it however you want. Now file save. If I reload, those stay the same. And look how the orb of transmutation looks and how the orb of augmentation looks. Let's talk about classes now. Now, what if I don't want to physically write every single currency in the game? All I care about is they look the same. I just want all currencies to look the same, with the exception of maybe a couple or something. Okay, well, that's super easy to do. So instead of using base type, we're actually going to use a new keyword called class. Remember what I told you, a base type is a specific one item of its own. So like a base type of crossbow would be this expert sturdy crossbow. That's the base of the crossbow. But there's other multiple crossbows. There's many crossbows in the game, different types. That's a class. Crossbows are a class, and this particular base type of crossbow is the expert sturdy crossbow. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. It's like a class would be life flask, or flask would be a class, right? But then the specific base type is transcendent life flask, if that makes sense. So don't worry about that. You don't have to understand those specifics, but just understand you could use class here, and you can remove the specific names of orbs, and you can literally just put currency. So if I put currency and I say that, and then let's say I want to keep this. I want orbs of transmutation and orbs of augmentation to look blue, but I want all other currency to look yellow with these settings. Let's say I wanted to do that. Well, if I say file and save, let's reload. Now let's see what happens. So obviously our regal orbs look good, exalts look good, chaos looks good, divines look good. We didn't specifically specify any of those orbs because we use the class currency. Anything that's a currency item will fall under that branch, right? This includes things like gold too. Scrolls of Wisdom is another example. But notice how we did put orbs of transmutation and orbs of augmentation. We put these two orbs, we put them separately under the list, right? Under the filter. So we still want these to be blue. But what happens if I drop them? They turn yellow. Why is that? Well, the reason why is because your filter item actually reads top to bottom. So because orbs of transmutation and augmentation are currency, they're going to follow these rules because they appear first on the list before this. So if I want to set specific rules for specific items, it's better to do that above. So if I put it above orbs of transmutation and augmentation, and then I say class currency, what does that mean? Now if I re-roll that, sorry, I didn't save the file. It's very important you save the file. File, save. Now we reload. Check it out. My transmutation and augmentations are that way, but everything else is yellow. Perfect. Okay? So remember that the order in the filter file also does matter. Okay? And the beauty of this is I'm setting a specific base type. I want orbs of transmutation and orbs of augmentation to look a certain way. Now I'm saying underneath that I want all other currency to look a certain way. Okay, so now what if you're like, well, I like that I could do that, but I want specific currencies. Like I don't want gold to look any different. I don't want scrolls of wisdom to look any different. I want them just to have their default appearance. How could I do that? Very simple. Remember, we have to, whenever we make any specific rules, we always have to put them at the top. So let's start with show. And then we're going to use base type. We're not going to use a whole class of currency. We're omitting specific types of currency. So we're going to say base type. And then let's say we want gold. Let's put it in quotes just to keep it consistent. And let's say scroll of wisdom. Well, we want gold and scroll of wisdom to keep its default look. So what do I add under it to make it default? Nothing. You don't set any parameters. You just say show base type gold and scroll of wisdom, and what would that do? If you set nothing, no changes to background color, text color, font size, anything like that, what will happen? It's going to retain its default look. So if I do this specifically, file, save. Now let's take a look. What happens is my scrolls of wisdom, they retain the same default look. Orbs of transmutation show blue. Regal orbs show yellow, as per the rules of my filter. So show and hide are two kind of, I guess, major keywords. These determine whether or not you're going to show something in the filter or you're going to hide something in the filter. Just be very careful with hide, because if you're not very, very specific with hide, you'll hide a lot of items and you have to hold Alt to see them. So if I just type hide, and let's say I wanted to hide, I'm a mercenary, so I want crossbows. So let's say I wanted to hide specifically anything like a, I don't know, a quarterstaff. Maybe it's just like that. Yeah, maybe I wanted to hide quarterstaff. Well, if I do that, file, save, and I don't have a quarterstaff here to show off. Let's actually we'll use this vest as an example. But now, if I dropped a quarterstaff, it would never show. But that's not always ideal, because you do want to show quarterstaffs even if you're not a mercenary. Why? Because if you drop a quarterstaff with sockets in it or quality in it, you want to salvage it. You want to take it to the salvage bench. So I specifically have this body armor right here, right? And let's take a look at this. So let's use the body armor as an example. So let's say I want to hide class, and then we'll say body armor. Remember, you have to put it in quotes if it's more than one word, and they specifically spell armor with a U. If you don't put the U, I don't think it's going to get detected. You have to spell armor with a U. So if I say hide class body armor, file, save, what's going to happen? When I reload, item filter loaded successfully. That's how you know you did it right. If I drop this, what'll happen? It's gone. I can't see it anymore. That will get filtered out of my loot filter. The problem is what if I drop something like this, a yellow one? It's also hidden. That's not good. Now I have to hold Alt in order to see the items. So now we have to decide on setting specific parameters that make it so we only see the armors that we want, and the armors hide the armors we don't want. So you can set it any way you want to. I can give you an example. Let's say I want to hide all body armors that do not have any sockets. Right? If they don't have any sockets, they're useless to me. For example, let's just say that's one example. So if I just say sockets, and I say less than 1, that's the syntax for sockets. So now if I say file and I save, and I reload, item filter loaded successfully, what'll happen? If I drop this body armor, it hides. If I drop the one I'm wearing, notice it's still showing normally. Why is it showing normally? Because it has sockets. Okay, so that's an example of how you would use sockets. But what if you don't want to hide all white items? What if you want to alter the rarity? What if you just want to hide all white items and you only want to see blues and yellows? Okay, you could do that too. You could remove sockets. You could say rarity. And you actually want to use the equal sign, or you can use greater than equals. And let me show you how that works. So if I say equals magic being a blue item, so hide all blues, or I could say hide all normals. This hides all whites. Let's save, reload. When I drop this chest armor, it hides, and when I drop this, it shows it. Why? Because this is a normal rarity, right? So let's put that back on. But notice, let's say I did have a white body armor with sockets, and I want that to show so I can pick it up and salvage it because I want to get those artificer's orbs so I can put sockets on my gear. Well, if you want to omit that, then, or if you want to add that specific text, then you would just combine the two examples that I just gave you. So you would say rarity equals normal, and you would say sockets less than 1. Okay, so now I don't have a white gear to show you. I wish I did, because it would make it more clear. But now if I do this, if I drop this, this will get hidden. But if it had a socket, and I could probably just put a socket for demonstration purposes, why not? Even though these are really valuable. I don't have any gear pieces. But let's just put a socket on it now. Now when I drop it, check this out. It's going to show. So notice earlier it didn't show because it didn't have a socket, but now it shows because it has a socket. So that's an easy way to make it so you're hiding specific things that you don't want to see, but you have to be very specific. If you just put hide and you only put a couple things, it's going to be really likely that you're going to hide things that you actually wanted to see. And then you might have to always constantly go through the game holding Alt to make sure you're not doing it. Be very careful, especially if you're a beginner with item filters using hide. I prefer you use show and you filter your items that way. Use show only. Try not to use hide unless you get very specific with it like this. Round out, let's summarize what we covered. So the two main keywords in creating a filter are show and hide. If you guys want more examples or want to see how it's done, feel free again to ask me questions in the comments. But let's just look at the syntax of these most common words and examples. So we have set text color, which you understand what that is. That sets the text of the item. So notice the text on the default is brown orb of transmutation. Just remember you need to set it as RGB. You need numeric values. We don't put commas in between or nothing. It has to be this specific format. R space G space B. Don't put in parentheses. That's the only thing I want you to ignore is the parentheses. You saw how it looked earlier. Use the RGB website I showed you earlier. Get the RGB values. You can pick any color. Doesn't matter. You can go whatever and just make sure you pick your RGB and you set it. Same thing goes for background color, border color, font size. Font size is different actually, but these are the ones. I believe there's one more that also follows RGB I'm just forgetting about, but these are the main ones you're going to even deal with. Border color, I don't know if I showed you that specific example, but it looks something like this. They see how is this green border. Yeah, this is what I added. I added green border whenever I look for a specific crossbow. I set my own rules, but going back to the general one anyways. Let's look at it again. So anyways, RGB for text color, background color, border color. Okay, for font size, remember it starts at 1 at the lowest if you want to make something super small. So you could actually experiment with hiding things that way instead of using hide. If you're scared you're gonna hide stuff you don't intend to, maybe you could, instead of saying hide those things, you could say show, and then maybe just set the font size really small, like 10 or something. That way, like, they look really small, they're negligible, but in case you miss something that is really good, you still see it. You could experiment with that, but I think the default is 30, 45 being the max. Okay, play alert sound 1 through 20, I believe, 1 through 15, something like that. Experiment with it, just try the different sounds. Remember, you have to put the first number chooses the specific sound, then the second number is your volume level, 1 to 300. Okay, then play effect, we just put the name of the color. An example would just be blue. You just say play effect blue. Okay, I'll actually write out some examples afterwards when we go over them. Item level, you would use it the same way we did in the sockets example or the rarity example, where you would put rarity and then you put it equals, or you would say greater than equals normal or magic. Okay, greater than equals means what? This affects magic items, yellow items, which are rare, and orange items, which are unique. So if you did greater than equal. If you want specifically only magic items, you just put the equal, okay? Class, this would be things like currency, crossbow, body armor. Remember, we put anything that has 2 words, we have to put in quotes. Waystone, right? These are your maps, right? Your waystones right here, right? If I look at this filter, I just increase the font size of waystones, for example. So I just keep it very basic. And then the final point would be base type, or things like specific bases. So Exalted Orb is a base of the class currency. Expert Sturdy Crossbow is the base of the class crossbow. Ruby Ring would be the base type of class ring, right? Body armor, waystones, you could put specific ones. Body armor, like if you know the base you want, like right here there's an expert rogue armor. If I knew I wanted that base, I could filter that way too. Just use base type. But that's gonna summarize everything there. There's way more. I'm gonna see if I could find the wiki and I'll add it to the description of the video, so you can kind of customize it more. If you have questions or you want to get a little bit more advanced, let me know, and either I could do a new video or you can stop by the stream and I can help you create that. Okay, so thanks for watching, guys. Peace.